Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome to the SB Nation NFL show where we love to talk about, guess what, the NFL. A reminder before we get started that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That's code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. As mentioned, this is the SB Nation NFL show. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, Apple devices, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, whatever the case may be. Leave a rating, write a review. Those things help us out. You can also watch us. You can do so live, but you can also do so after the fact on the SB Nation NFL YouTube channel, Facebook page, or Twitter page, assuming that still exists. My name is RJ Ochoa. You know me from SB Nation's Blog and the Boys, home of America's team. And, with me as always, the fantastic Rachel Prevet on the ones and twos, but here to give us some beautiful, bold, brazened takes, the Triple B, not for Big Baller Brand. It is for Big Baller Bro, Pete Sweeney from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride. Pete, your thoughts on the Triple B brand? Did you buy the shoes?
Good morning, and good afternoon. No purchase of the shoes for me. I enjoy the Triple B. Whatever you want to serve up, I'm willing to eat here, RJ. You know that.
Pete, it was a late night for you, obviously, with the Kansas City Chiefs getting the
yeah.
overtime Sunday Night Football win. You get up, you do the local news, hits. Did you sleep at all? Like, we're talking 3 hours, maybe? What's the deal here?
Yep, 3 hours, three good hours of sleep, and we've been rolling here. We gotta cover everything that happened on Sunday Night Football. What made it even worse this week was that we fell back. So it technically, body clock wise, was even an hour later than that. So
I would push back against that because you theoretically got an extra hour of sleep entering the day.
Uphill battle, setbacks pave the way for comebacks, and we're going to try to come back here. So.
Nothing but complaining. Interesting. We want to start things off talking about the best team in the AFC West. So that would not be the Kansas City Chiefs. That would, of course, be the Los Angeles Chargers. And joining us from Bolts from the Blue, you know him, you hear him. He is basically a better version of anybody you have ever met in your life. It is Michael Peterson, not Baker Mayfield, who did get back in the game for the Carolina Panthers on Sunday afternoon. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You are on mute, though, by the way. I don't know if Baker would have muted him.
Happy to be here. You know what it is.
Yeah, wow. What are your thoughts on the Los Angeles Chargers finally not being frauds? I'm a little upset at the Chargers, Michael.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a stretch that they're not frauds after barely winning a game where they handed the ball back to the Falcons a couple times in the fourth quarter. It was their fourth one of the last five, where I think it's all within one score. I think 3 of those games were 3 or less points. Definitely, not sustainable for the Chargers. But at this point, when you have 40% of your roster healthy and a lot of money sitting on the bench or on IR, you'll take wins any way you can get them. And fortunately, the Chargers are 5-3 with, a really, really tough 2-game stretch here coming up with the 49ers and Chiefs.
You mentioned that 4 or 5 with the wins, and not to say that they've been the prettiest wins, but they have been wins. As you talk about some of the struggles, how much of it is concerning about Justin Herbert, and how much is it just the team as a whole?
I think with Justin Herbert's first 2 seasons, we've set the bar super high for how he should look pretty much week in and week out. And, lately he's thrown for around, 250 yards a game. He gets maybe 1 touchdown. It's been, he hasn't had a lot of multi-touchdown games this season, but that's, to be expected when you don't have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. He's thrown to a lot of guys who wouldn't normally sniff a active NFL roster. I mean, you've got Michael Bandy, you've got Keelan Doss, Jason Moore, a lot of guys who some would consider almost NPCs. If you're playing Madden, you have no idea who you're throwing these footballs to. But again, not the prettiest wins. I think at the end of the day, this is all you can ask for. You don't have your stars on the field. You don't have really a healthy team whatsoever. Any way you can get a win is fine. It's just tough knowing that even though they're sneaking out these wins, they're not going to get a lot of their good players back. Again, we don't know when Keenan Allen's coming back. Williams is out a few weeks. Bosa is not coming back for another month or so. They got to keep surviving, and I just don't know how, again, sustainable it is to win this way.
The Keenan Allen thing is very strange. Like what's happened there. And I feel like this Charger season has been very strange. I guess you could argue that there's reason for optimism, and obviously we wouldn't have asked you to come on if they hadn't won and there wasn't something to be pumped about. But it is kind of somber. There's a cloud hanging over them. They're on Sunday Night Football next week, so I feel like Like I personally think that nobody likes to tear into the Chargers like when they're bad. But if you're on, the national spotlight, there's kind of nowhere to hide. I think the Chargers benefited from not being the Broncos the last time they were on Monday Night Football. But like this team just feels really loose. Like it feels like they're, like in a movie where like a car or a bike has like a loose, screw and you're like, oh my gosh, it's about to like, veer off the road or whatever. Like that's what this Chargers team feels like this season.
Yeah, you're definitely right. You're on the edge pretty much the whole time. You know that wheel's going to come off, or it really seems like eventually you put money on it every day. And for some reason, the bike's still going, the car's still going, and you just never know if it's going to make it from point A to point B. It's tough, man. Injuries are something that Chargers fans and the Chargers franchise know all too well. If you look over the past decade, essentially Tom Telesco's tenure as general manager, there's been 2 years where they haven't really been hit somewhat hard by the injury bug. And that was in the last two times they've honestly made the playoffs. It was 2013 and then 2018, where they went 12-4, won a playoff game. And the only real injury that year was Hunter Henry. And they were just fine with Virgil Green, starting at tight end. In 2021, last year, when they went 9-8 and barely missed the playoffs, they also didn't have terrible injury luck as well. But that was the one year they didn't make the playoffs where things kind of went their way. And regression just hit, man. Regression just hit. The snake bitten mantra is the theme with the Chargers, that they just can't get out of their own way. When one injury happens, more and more happen. I mean, just look at yesterday. Yeah, they barely won, but it looks like defensive tackle Austin Johnson, who they signed in the offseason to start immediately opposite Sebastian Joseph Day, could be out for the foreseeable future with an MCL injury. So, again, winning is fine, but it seems like at what cost are they winning these games? And it just seems to be more and more injuries.
I know that there's an undefined timetable when it comes to Keenan Allen. From the outside looking in, and I just want you to sort of describe the situation here. Keenan, it seems, is not thrilled that maybe he was forced back into the mix before he was 100%. He went on record to say that the next time he comes back, he's going to be 100%. Is there a little bit of a rift between medical staff and player right now? And it's a star player, so I think that matters.
Yeah, I'm not so sure there's a rift being created. Obviously, Keenan Allen, knowing who he is and how much of a competitor he is, he wants to be out on the field. And I think, as in general, Brandon Staley and his staff has always been very cautious with injuries. Obviously, not playing any of the starters in the preseason. It seemed like Keenan Allen should have returned from the initial hamstring injury maybe within the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then each week it was, it's just not right. I just don't feel it. Right before the Texans game, he kind of had a little bit of a setback. Okay, so pushed it off a couple weeks. And I think they were cautious all the way up to the Seahawks game. And of course, in that game, he was on a very limited snap count. He only played in the first half, had a couple catches, and then didn't play the second half. And then the idea was, okay, that's great to see. He played a half. Nothing came of it. Cool. We go into the bye. Hopefully, we're a little bit healthier on the other side. And then all of a sudden, the entire Chargers team was less healthy on the other side. The injury report doubled. And then there was obviously the thing with Keenan Allen talking to the media saying, going forward, because he had a setback right over the bye week. He was training, he was doing his rehab, essentially just running some sprints, kind of warming up like that. Right. And so that at that point, I think is when he decided in his head, man, this thing's not getting better. Next time I go in, I think I just have to make it that black and white. It's either I'm 100% and I'm going to do it, or I'm not. And what sucks is that unfortunately puts this, completely up in the air. We don't know when we'll see Keenan Allen again. And on top of the Mike Williams high ankle sprain, keeping him out for a month plus, it's just really rough right now for that offense.
Have the expectations changed? I think that's like my final question. And like I didn't drink as much of the Kool-Aid as a lot of people. I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert, big fan of Michael Peterson. But there's just something about this team that's hard to believe in. And so, and I would actually be bothered if expectations change, because I feel like that would be a cop out. People were trying to put, I don't mean to ruffle the feathers of the super fraudulent AFC West mixtape here. But people were trying to put the Chargers on the same pedestal as the Chiefs. And so now I don't think it's fair to be well, they're not there, whatever. They're still this ragtag group of underdogs. No, people there has to be some accountability at some point somewhere. And I don't think that's happening anywhere here. That's my perception, at least.
Yeah, I think prior to the biggest injury, so the first 2 weeks, obviously you beat the Raiders, which seemed like a slugfest. You want to be able to hang your hat on an opening win like that, get some revenge from last year. But the Raiders obviously haven't looked that great. The Chiefs game was very close, a very good game of football. Chiefs did what they normally do. Patrick Mahomes did what he normally does. They scraped by and won that game. And then the Jaguars came to town, and I think it was 38-10, put a whooping in their own stadium. But that was the game where Rashawn Slater and Joey Bosa got hurt. And that's only kind of snowballed from here. Obviously, they had a second home blowout loss to the Seahawks, and all their wins have been really close. I believe still the Chargers are worst team in the AFC West in terms of point differential, and that's still below the Broncos and the Raiders, who have been as bad as they've been this year. So it is super tough. And to answer your question, yes, expectations have changed. I think they've needed to change. I don't know how you can expect the superstardom hype around the team to keep the same, I guess, when all your superstars are hurt, when Rashawn Slater, Bosa go down, before JC Jackson goes down, who you handed $80 million to. He is essentially the worst defender on the field every time he takes the field. People want to point to the injury. Well, it was the surgery where he said like 2 weeks after the surgery that he was 100%. So in his words, he was fine. It wasn't injury related. It's just fundamentals and things he needs to get out of his own head. That's really tough when you go out and get a player like that. So in general, I think there's still a level of expectations to have with this team. I think they have the power and the star talent still available to be a good football team, but they're still underwhelming. And at this point, instead of making the playoffs and winning a playoff game, I think the Chargers right now need to be worried about even making the playoffs once again.
Currently the 7th seed in the AFC, so we'll see how that goes. Of course, Michael will keep you updated at Bolts from the Blue on Twitter at Zone Tracks. Michael Peterson, thank you for joining us. As you leave, give us one thing you promise to eat before this week is over. Before Friday night, when you sit down, watch a movie with the family, whatever it is, give us one thing you promise to have eaten. It can be breakfast, lunch, or dinner between now and then.
Like specific food or just literal breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
No, like a little meal, like a little
meal,
like grilled chicken, like you're going to Chipotle,
maybe a chicken pot pie.
Yeah. We, my wife and I found a taco truck down the road that is now what we found to be the best tacos in the state of Minnesota. I've been here for over a year. It took me over a year to find a place to go. This is a place where we're going to go get tacos every Tuesday or whatever. Finally found the place. It's fantastic. It's like right outside a liquor store. Perfect location. Phenomenal.
Okay.
Right, because you get your tacos and you get your liquor.
Yep.
So that makes that
right.
Makes
also, right, took you a year when it's right down the road.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We went to all kinds of brick and mortar places. I've been to other taco trucks. I always pass this one. I kept saying to myself, I'm going to try it sometime. Finally did.
Oh,
don't be about it.
I don't know what kind of vehicle you drive, but I can just see you like passing it and being like, next time.
I do say in Minnesota, don't be about it. Taco about it, and you're finally delivering. So we appreciate that here.
The state motto. How could I forget? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what the state flag of Minnesota looks like, but I promise it's better than the state flag of Maryland. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful day. We love you forever.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Pete Sweeney.
Really getting jalapeno as business there a little bit there.
I wanted to say one thing. It's not quite breaking news, but Michael mentioned, or you mentioned, I don't know which one of you mentioned. I was listening, I promise. But the bye week and things happening over it was Michael. This came out as we were recording, as we still are. Xavier McKinney, New York Giants safety. The Giants were on their bye this past weekend. He released a classic Notes app statement and said, during our bye week, I went away to Cabo. While there, I joined a group for a guided sightseeing tour on ATVs. Do you know what ATV stands for? Because I don't.
It is like one of those vacation.
I know what an ATV is, but what is the acronym stand for? Automated.
It's a mini. It's a mini truck. It's like a 4-wheeler.
Again, I know what it is.
Drive it.
I don't know what the acronym is short for. Unfortunately, I had an accident and injured my hand. The injury will keep me sidelined for a few weeks. I will do everything I can to get back as quickly as possible so I can contribute to what we're building here in NY.
These Giants over the years have trouble keeping their hands intact during breaks.
All right. Anyway,
JPP.
We had 5 other teams on bye this past weekend.
Who else was on bye this week?
The Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't know the last one.
A lot in common with those teams, really.
Anyway, well, so we have a lot less games to talk about than normally.
We're going to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
A lot of fantasy players, which I know you're a part of, referred to this week as bye Mageddon. So hopefully you made it through.
Nope, not me.
Wow.
I traded Nick Chubb for Jonathan Taylor earlier this year.
Woo! Ooh, sucks to suck. All right. Well, let's go to one Chubb, Bradley Chubb, and the Miami Dolphins got
Thumbs up.
Give us the.
I'm not doing it to this week.
Why? Okay. The Dolphins got the win 35-32 over the Chicago Bears in what was the most entertaining game. I know the Chiefs Titans was fun, but this had a lot more back and forth, a lot more scoring, obviously. A lot of people starting to hype up, gas up, juice up Justin Fields. Tua Tagovailoa, meanwhile, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, so much better off without the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs were holding Tyreek back, Pete, I think is the takeaway. 7 catches, $143, a touchdown. Jalen Waddle waddled his way to another score. On the other side of things, Justin Fields, 17 of 28 passing for only 123 yards through the air, did have 3 passing touchdowns. Chase Claypool in his first game with the Bears only caught 2 passes for 13 targets. But the big thing was Justin Fields on the ground, 15 carries, 178 yards and a score. I don't know if you saw this. It was the most rushing yards that an NFL quarterback has ever had in a regular season game. Mike Vick no longer holds that crown.
Yeah. I give the come up of the week, and usually it's to one side or the other, one player or another. But this is almost a come up game of the week.
Wow,
because,
a come up match.
Yeah, it's because it's a come up, I think, for both teams, right? Because Justin Fields has had a lot of questions as to, is he a legitimate QB? Can you win with Justin Fields? And I know they didn't win this game, but that was a performance that makes you say, you know what, this guy definitely is a franchise quarterback. So if there's any questions about in Chicago about whether or not this is the guy, I think he answered it with an exclamation point. And if Chicago wants to throw him away, someone is going to make this guy work. And they were talking about Michael Vick because of the yardage that he was able to get on the ground. I mean, they've proven in Baltimore that you can win this way, so long as you build around the player. They've done a lot of moves about the rebuilding, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'm happy that they went and got him a receiver for once and trying to help him. And you see what it does for guys like Mooney, who was able to bring in that touchdown.
When the Mooney hits your eye.
With the one-on-one coverage. Great. And then on the Dolphins side, they are a contender. You know, we went into the season not even necessarily knowing if the Dolphins were someone that we should be considering, I think, a playoff team. And as time has gone on, you've been able to see not only are they a playoff team, I think they could spoil what a lot of people have assumed to be this Buffalo, Kansas City, maybe Baltimore party, and they went all in with the Chubb trade, and I like that. You feel like, okay, we can do it this year. Let's put all our chips in, and let's put all our chips on the table. And this wasn't the greatest game. They did get carved up a little bit by Justin Fields, but at the end, you win by 3 points. You get to 6-3. This is an interesting Dolphins team.
So I want to talk about the Dolphins, but very quickly on Justin Fields. Obviously, I saw him really closely last week when he and the Bears lost to the Dallas Cowboys. And he had a kind of a similar performance to this, obviously not as excessive. And the take started to kind of come out, right? Like, oh, he's definitely a franchise quarterback, like things that you're saying. And I was a little bit slow to believe, and I'm still slow. But like what this game was to me was, okay, maybe we're on to something. Like, it's indicative that last week against Dallas was not just some like flash in the pan performance. It's okay. Like maybe we're figuring something out. I'm out as a member of the jury. I'm not quite back, but I'm still discussing and debating and figuring out my opinion on this particular player. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, this season has kind of turned low key fun for the Bears. Like it's not fun when you're selling off pieces. You know what I mean? Like the way they clearly are. But if you're discovering something in the process, they're going to be a really sexy pick next year to kind of like, now that the NFC North is in shambles, like do something special. Comparing
to them to the team you hate the most in the league, when you're an Indianapolis fan right now, you put on the Colts and there's hardly any reason to watch. At least with Chicago now with Fields and the way he's emerging like this, there's at least a reason to watch, right? Like that was pretty exciting yesterday. And when you have an exciting player like that, yeah, the Bears are not making the playoffs. I think we all know that, but they can play spoiler to good teams, right? This is a team that you're looking at, and I don't have their schedule pulled up, but they could win some games that they shouldn't and really mess up, what would be the standings down the stretch here.
So here's Chicago's schedule. They've got the Lions this week at Atlanta. Atlanta, kind of a flirty playoff contender, obviously lost to the Chargers. At the Jets, that's kind of a playoff implication game.
Yes.
The Packers, they suck, but I tell you, this little 2-week stretch, man, late bye. They have other teams do, but they have the latest bye at week 14. But so coming off their bye, they will get the Philadelphia Eagles at home in week 15. And the Eagles, by the way, that's an interesting little 4-week stretch for the Eagles. Tennessee, at the Giants, at the Bears, at the Cowboys. So 3 road games in a row, at the Giants, at the Bears, at the Cowboys for the Eagles. Like, I don't know what I think about those games, but they certainly appear more difficult right now than they did a month ago for Philadelphia, even as mighty as Philadelphia has looked.
Right. And really, if you're going to go undefeated, they're the only team that hasn't had a loss here. You're going to play some games against teams that you're better than, that you may wind up being in a bit of a dogfight. We saw that last week with the Eagles, where, the Houston Texans, no one was giving them any chance. And all of a sudden you turn on the third quarter and you're like, wait a minute, is Houston about to pull this off? Right. So I think the Bears can be that team against some of these playoff teams. Yeah.
Speaking of being that team, on the Dolphins side of things, I think the Dolphins are the team that people want the Chargers so desperately to be. Like, the Dolphins have become that team, and they haven't made the playoffs yet. So, like, I don't want to, like, count our chickens or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, we've sat here the last few weeks. It's like, man, the class of 2021 quarterbacks like stinks, right? Like Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance is a question mark. Justin Fields obviously looking better. But this class, I mean, Herbert gets all the love, and Joe Burrow is kind of second fiddle for no reason to Justin Herbert. But Tua, like, the Dolphins are kind of doing it, and they're not doing it like the way poor teams have won divisions in the past. Like, they're hanging in a really tough and competitive AFC East.
The great thing about it being Miami instead of the Chargers too is that the Miami Dolphins actually have fans, which is nice for them. So at least the fact that they're an emerging team, there's people to root for that as well, which is good. If it was the Chargers, kind of would be a little bit of a waste.
Speaking of, though, week 14 is when we start cooking with gas, because that week the Dolphins are in LA to take on the Chargers, and the next week they're in Buffalo. That is going to be a fun 2-week stretch for the Dolphins. Fins up. What a great win. Tua looks great. Everything that the Dolphins are doing looks solid. I trust them, except for like the off-field things that they do. Like, I trust their football team. Now no pendulum has swung as back and forth as Miami's this season. Like, with the Tua injury stuff and now coming back, like, man, they are a weird team.
Speaking of week 14, they head out to Denver. Catch that one in person. Chiefs Broncos on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, that's true. I hate the NFL.
It's only a quick 9-hour drive from Kansas City.
I hate the NFL on YouTube. Interesting username given what we're talking about here. It says, man, I wish Drake May can come out this year. Dude reminds me so much of Josh Allen. We will see. I mean, it's not draft time yet. There's still half a season to go. Pete, where do you want to go next? What game interests you? Actually, we have to do this.
What?
We have to give me your best New York Jets and your best New York accent. I know you're a Giants guy and everything like that, but let's go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Did you guys see that game yesterday? Zach Wilson, he can do it. God.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. You're a little bit off. Maybe you'll warm up as we move along.
Move along. It's been a while since I've lived in New York.
A great song by the All-American Rejects. The New York Jets shocked the world 20-17 with the dub over the Buffalo Bills. A game that I imagine brought Pete Sweeney much joy and jubilation, because Pete thinks the Bills are frauds. He won't say it, but I'll say it for him. Pete thinks thinks that the Chiefs would have never lost this game.
I do not think the Bills are frauds. Let's be clear here. I think they get too much credit for having done nothing. That's all I feel.
I wouldn't say that they've done nothing.
But what have they truly done?
I mean, they've had success in the playoffs. They haven't had ultimate success, but like, outside of the Chiefs, they've had the most success in the AFC recently. Like, I know the Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year, but I mean, whatever. I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about the game. The Jets.
I think they're a good football team. I just don't. It's the classic case of the crown before doing it.
This was the like head to one end of the spectrum game, because with the awful loss of the Patriots last week, people are ready to, like, after the Jets got obliterated by the Bills, to be like, well, same old Jets. Like, you can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, cool. You gave us a little something in October, but now when the big boys start to play, you're out of the mix. No. Now you're back. Now Jets fans are all the way back. Like I said, the top 3 teams in the AFC East all have 6 wins: the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins. The Patriots are right behind them with 5. I mean, so this division is a ton of fun. I do think there's a little bit of overly crowning Zach Wilson for this performance. Like, I don't know that he led the Jets to victory, but this Jets defense is very, very, like, we're not giving enough love to the Jets defense. Shout out to Robert Saleh. By the way, I am a mark of good luck. Last year, I said Zach Taylor would be the first head coach to be fired. Look what happened. This year, I said Robert Saleh. Look what's going on.
Right. No, the Jets are interesting, and they got the run game. They clearly have the defense. The Saleh program is really starting to work. They have a stud in Sauce Gardner and what he has been able to do. The question is the biggest question. Is Zach Wilson ready to be a year or two ahead? And it's cute right now. They were able to pull it off yesterday because Josh Allen played horribly, by the way. Like, that was part of it as well, where he was making uncharacteristic mistakes. He's actually found himself third in the MVP odds, according to our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, because of that effort that he put out yesterday. But, you look at the Jets and you want to consider them legitimate. But, I mean, we always say this. It's like, you could have the rest of your team set. Look at Denver for all these years. If you don't know that you have the quarterback that can get it done in these big-time spots, you got nothing, man. And there's just too many questions about Zach Wilson, where he's at this stage, to feel like the Jets are a legitimate contender.
I agree with everything that you said, and I'm not trying to dismiss it and move on, but we have, once again, some breaking news. That's what happens when we do this live on Mondays. I don't think you've seen it, Pete, because you were giving that excellent analysis. The Indianapolis Colts have fired head coach Frank Reich. We were probably going to talk about this game much later in the show, but the Colts, again, all due respect to the Bills and Jets, I think the Bills are happy to no longer be talked about. They want this game over and done with as soon as possible. But the Colts lost to the New England Patriots on Sunday, 26-3. It was the second start for Sam Ehlinger, and it was not pretty. It was actually very gross. The Colts continue to have one of the worst offenses in the NFL, despite gassing themselves up and soaking in all the goodwill for doing nothing and trading for Matt Ryan and acting like that was this savior sort of moment for them. This team has been broken from the very beginning of this season. They are now 3-5-1. They fired offensive coordinator Marcus Brady last week. Frank Reich is next. They've already benched Matt Ryan. There's all sorts of accountability being had, apparently, by everybody that is not Chris Ballard. Frank Reich now, I hate to say, taking some accountability. I feel for him. I'm never happy to see anybody fired, but I mean, this was a long time coming. This Colt season broke a very long time ago.
I don't know if there's a worse situation in football than Indianapolis right now, where you bring in Matt Ryan, you've moved on from the quarterback, you make that big move at quarterback, but now you're giving up on the head coach. I think when it comes to Chris Ballard, I've always been a Chris Ballard guy. I think, and I know you don't like to when I say this, but I think he was dealt a bad hand on his selection for being a GM, because he felt like he really did have the franchise quarterback in place. It hasn't worked out in like 5 or 6 attempts to get it right after that. So you have to be fair and say that as well. But, is other than maybe Carolina, even if you want to say Houston, I feel like Houston's even in a better position at this stage. It feels like an organization that really just needs to hit the complete and utter reset button. I'm a little surprised that this happened mid-year. I wouldn't have been stunned if they moved on from Frank Reich after the year, but you make the change to quarterback. So to me, that translates in like, let's just see what you can do development-wise. But Jim Irsay, he's a little bit unpredictable when it comes to these types of things, and we saw that play out this morning.
I do feel, obviously, for Colts fans, this is not fun, and I think it's worth mentioning, and I don't say this to like offer like any sort of reprieve or give them some sort of pass, but you said hit the ultimate reset. I know you do, but like, do you remember how the Frank Reich era began? They did hit the reset. They were going to hire Josh McDaniels, and thank God for them that they didn't, obviously, with the way things are going in Vegas right now. But like, even this was started off on a left foot, and they've never been able to catch up. They've continued to like, Andrew Luck retired. What were we supposed to do? Like, grow up, like do something.
Yeah.
Like what? Like there's nothing happening. This is just a wallowing franchise. That's all they do is wallow and point fingers for all of their own faults on everybody else. I'm not like rooting for Chris Ballard to get fired. I think that's awful. But like, right, where is his accountability?
I'm wondering if he is going to get another opportunity to hire a head coach, because typically when these moves happen, right, it is the head coach and like if you're going to do the head coach and GM, right, it happens usually at the same time. And so I wonder if you sometimes see these GMs, if the owner sides with the GM, where they get a shot to try to redo it. We'll see. It feels like it's grim for Chris Ballard, but at the same time, I would have thought that it would have happened today if it was going to happen. So I don't know.
Do you think this might be a stupid question, but do you think that things really took off? It does feel like that Thursday night football game was like an inflection point for the Broncos and Colts.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it felt like those teams were the same before that game and have been the same after. But for some reason, that game like magnified the yuck on both of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering a lot about the decisions that are happening right now. Like, who's making them? Is, as you say, just stepped in and said, no, we're going to change quarterbacks. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Was changing quarterbacks a last ditched effort to say, okay, Frank, what can you do with Sam Ehlinger? And then when you go, let me see here. I just had it up. 0 for 14 on third downs against the New England Patriots, and the Patriots win 26-3, and they've had their struggles. Does he just say enough is enough? I go back when I try to understand the mindset of Irsay. I go back to the bus video where he's in front of the bus, and like you can tell that he doesn't even want Carson Wentz to get on it after they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in that must win to make the playoff game. And I think this particular owner, he's a little bit outward with his feelings. We've even seen it in the Dan Snyder stuff where he's going on record and saying, maybe we just get rid of this guy, where the other owners really aren't that forthcoming. And so I think he's a little bit more of an emotional owner. And I do wonder if this 26-3 disaster yesterday was a clear, like, all right, last straw type of deal. We need to change course here.
I don't have a problem being emotional. Like I think like I like that among owners. Like I'm not a Mavericks fan.
You? I'm so surprised by that. I wonder why that is.
But like I think it's cool that like Mark Cuban is as passionate of a fan as he is as the team's owner. Like I do think that's cool. Like if you're a fan of that team, it's cool that the owner's like on the same plane as you in that sense. So I don't have a problem with Jim Irsay being passionate, and you could argue that passion leads to like some short-sighted decisions. What I think this is like embarrassment. I think this is Jim Irsay being tired of being embarrassed. And I think that if like they have botched coach firings. Like think about that. Like they've botched the quarterback position because they have refused to do anything. They've just tried to hit the lotto. Well, Phillip Rivers is going to save us. Oh, Carson Wentz is going to save us. Matt Ryan's going to save us. Chuck Pagano should have been fired. What year was it? Was it 20? So Frank Reich was hired in 2018, entering the 2017 season. It was, remember, they were going to fire Chuck Pagano, and like all the players went up to Jim Irsay's office and were like, please don't fire Chuck. We like him. Like that emotion can be a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? Like the emotion of the moment. And so he stuck with Chuck Pagano. That didn't work out. And I will say it was unfortunate what happened when they decided to go with Josh McDaniels. The same way it was unfortunate what happened when they obviously Andrew Luck retired. But like you made that bed to get into bed with Josh McDaniels. And like that is proven, 4 years later, to be something that was dumb back then as well. And so like, this is just, I mean, I have no issue firing him. I feel badly for Frank Reich, but this, I just, if I was a Colts fan, I'd be like, dude, where is the accountability? What's good? And if I was the OC who was fired last week, I'd be pissed. Like that, if you're fired just for Frank Reich to be fired, like you were so very clearly the scapegoat for last week. And it's just like, now it's clear, well, Frank Reich was out of people to burn, out of people to throw under the bus. He was the only person left.
Right. And there's just a lot of time left. I mean, we're starting to figure things out, I think, and what this year is going to look like and who the real contenders are and whatnot. However, I was just thinking about this last night because, you get out of the Chiefs game, and you're through 8 games. You still have 9 games left, right? Like that's why I'm just the timing is weird for me. There's just a lot of time left. So who's going to be the interim coach? Because they've fired other coaches already, heading into what would be the head coach firing. And so,
man, I'm sorry. I just realized their next 2 games, the Colts in this mess, are on the road against the Raiders, against Josh McDaniels, the head coach who they couldn't get or whatever, however you want to put that. And then their next game is against the Eagles in week 11. And the coordinator they let walk, Nick Sirianni. Yeah, like just they don't deserve to be an NFL team. Like disband the Colts, relegate the Colts, promote the Spurs.
Unless this is just a complete punt on the year, because the Raiders, I'm sure we'll talk about, coming off another tough loss, but they should win that game, and the Eagles are going to win. Who knows about the Steelers? I tend to think the Steelers have it a little bit more together than the Colts right now, and so it's a battle in the toilet. That's a primetime game I'm looking at, by the way, on November 28th. Is that Thanksgiving?
They are.
Is that the Thanksgiving? Is November 28th Thanksgiving?
No, November 24th is Thanksgiving, but they
Okay,
are
so they're
they
Sunday Night
are
Football.
they're on Monday Night Football the week at like the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Well, there you go. That's the primetime game then. So they're playing the Steelers on Monday Night Football. That is the worst Monday Night Football game that we have on the schedule. It has to be.
Get ready, Pete, because they're on Monday Night Football back-to-back weeks. They're on Monday Night Football that week, and then they're on Sunday Night Football against my Cowboys. Look, I'm not going to take.
Well, they won't win one of those games. They won't. They're not going to win one of those games.
I don't want to take my victory lap, over Frank Reich getting fired. I feel for him and his family, and it's an embarrassing day. But everyone involved with the Colts made this bed this year. Yeah. And Carson Wentz stinks, but they blamed him, and they made it personal. They made it personal to save themselves, and they bought themselves 8 months of time, 8 months of employment, whatever you want to call it. This was a lame duck season. Stats on YouTube says, what's the case for Ballard to get to pick another head coach? He should be out. I don't know why Chris Ballard's still there. I mean, what is like? Well, you said it. They need a whole reset here.
It's. I mean, there is no case except for what the owner wants, and I just tend to think there's a scenario here. If Ballard hasn't been fired with Frank Reich, I think there's a chance that Irsay wants to give him another shot. And it may not make any sense to us, but we are not the owner of the Colts who chose to, for whatever reason, not fire him yet. I wonder if that is to come, though. We will see.
What was the peak of the Frank Reich era? Last question here, and then we'll move on.
I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Is there a peak? Was there a peak?
I mean, they beat the Texans in the playoffs with Andrew Luck.
So that has to be it, right?
That was year one. So, I mean, ever since then, they have been such a team of almost. Well, they almost beat the Bills in the playoffs. Well, Phillip Rivers was almost good enough. Well, listen, how happy is Nyheim Hines, by the way? Like, even though he lost his first game with the Bills, like, he's got to be pretty pumped.
He should be thrilled to be out of there. Yeah, he should be thrilled. And I think the Bills are going to, we'll see as it develops here, but I think the Bills are going to use him in a really good way. Like, I thought that was a really shrewd move by them. And now he's in a place where he's going to be playing in the playoffs for sure. So good for Hines.
Jim Irsay tweeted a photo of a Colts helmet and said, "We have parted ways with head coach Frank Reich."
Yeah, God.
Wow.
Well,
I think that the Monday Night Football flex scheduling starts next year. But that Sunday night game against Dallas is available. Like, it's within the range to be flexed out, but they're not ditching the Cowboys. Let's be real.
I think if anyone's playing the Colts, I know what you're saying. I would agree with you with the Cowboys, but
if it was like Colts Bengals on Sunday Night Football, it's getting flexed out. You know what I mean? Like, it's the only reason it's staying is because it's the Cowboys. It's at AT&T Stadium.
I'm telling you, I don't think the Colts are playing. If the Colts have an opportunity, I don't care if it's the Cowboys. I mean, it could be anybody at this point. It could be the Ramley if they were playing a New York team. I think they're getting flexed out. I do not think the NFL is going to let the Colts play on primetime if it's a flexible game. I'm telling you.
Frank Reich will be an awesome offensive coordinator next year because he doesn't have to be the leader that he was tasked to be with the Colts.
He can just focus in on. Well, I'm seeing some tweets out there right now, some hot takes. I've seen a couple people say that he's the next coach of the Denver Broncos.
That would be so funny. I don't think we made enough about Peyton leaving the Colts to join the Broncos and like going from being like a baby horse to like an actual horse. You know what I mean? Like, if that had happened in the era where ESPN does these like weird cartoon graphics from Monday Night Football, there would have been some sort of like Pokemon evolution thing happening there.
Yes, sure.
All right. So shout out to Frank Reich and the Colts who took over our show and who buried the Bills. Nyheim Hines, kind of thankful, like I said, for exactly when that news dropped. Let's speed through a couple more. Speaking of those Bengals, Who Day. Can you give me a Who Day, Pete?
Who Day.
I saw the Bengals social team did a video. Apparently, like the Bengals are messing up the line. I don't know if you knew this. So like the line I think starts with who they say, and they have not been saying it that way.
Who they say gonna beat them Bengals.
Right. But like the Saints, what is the Saints? Who dat? Like
who dat?
the next line
who dat
is
say gonna beat
no,
them Saints.
the next line in who dat is not say. So, but the Bengals were basically following the who dat chant, but just replacing dat with day. You know what I'm saying? So I think they were corrected in understanding that the sequence of words following day. So who they say.
What you're telling me right now is the Bengals social team had to be corrected by Bengals
No.
fans?
I'm saying the Bengals social team was correcting the Bengals players. I saw an interview that they conducted. I don't know which Bengal it was. It was like one of the offensive linemen, and she was telling him, like, she was really sweet about it. But she was like, you guys kind of got this wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So
that happens here sometimes when new players arrive and they try to say, like, it's really good to be in Kansas. And
shout out Tyrann Mathieu.
Touchy. Yeah. Little touchy. Yeah.
Wow. But anyway, who they say defeated the Carolina Panthers 42-21, the other team who fired their head coach this season. So we've got 2 coach firings as of November 7th. 42-21. The big story was Joe Mixon had 5 touchdowns. Holy crap. Did you go up against Joe Mixon in any of your fantasy leagues?
No. I'm down on the double F right now. It's not my year.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mentioned this. Do you think Michael Peterson looks like Baker Mayfield, by the way?
Yeah.
Right.
He does. And
he does.
And Baker seems like a guy that would enjoy a nice taco truck as well. So maybe they can connect on that level.
Well, Baker got in the game in the second half, was 14 of 20, 155 yards, did throw 2 touchdowns, although Sam Darnold was activated on Monday, so we'll see exactly what happens there. But this was a really simple game. I don't know that I believe in the Bengals again. Like I'm still like last Monday night was really, really spooky. Obviously, it was on Halloween. It was so spooky.
Well, I mean, if you do this on this game, if you take away the mixing touchdowns and just start the game where Baker got in, the Panthers won this game. So, if you look at it like that.
That's true. But wow, what a performance from Joe Mixon. I saw that, speaking of the Bengals social team, they're getting a lot of pop here. They showed a video of Burrow and Mixon walking like out of the stadium, and they said, not a bunch of average Joes. You get it? Because both their names are Joe.
2 Joes. Joe squared situation. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Wow. Yeah. Bengals.
Is this Mayfield's job? You let Mayfield cook now, or do you go back to PJ Walker?
I don't know, dude. I mean, it's all broken.
Does it matter? Doesn't matter.
If you're a Panthers or now a Colts fan, you're literally just watching the sand tick down on the hourglass. You know what I mean? That's all you got right now.
You're ready for I know what you're saying. They're ready for the NFL draft in Kansas City.
Oh yeah, look at that. By the way, who do you feel more bad for right now, Baker Mayfield or Matt Ryan?
I guess Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. There's something that rubs you the wrong way about Baker, where, like, I think Baker, in my opinion, I think he's a little quick to, like, feel like he deserves something, where, he had one good Browns season where they made the playoffs. And, I don't know if the next year was necessarily his fault. It seemed like there were some questions, like similar to the Keenan Allen situation, where was he playing injured? Should he have been playing? And then he was a scapegoat and they traded for someone right under his nose. I don't think it was a fair hand necessarily, but Matt Ryan, he's been there before. He's won an MVP. I think he was sold that he would at least get a full year with this new team, and they leaned into him at the beginning, and it's just been a debacle. And the hard part for, I think, both of these guys too is the Browns have had some modest success this year, and they may be in a position where when Deshaun returns, like, there's a chance that they could be interesting and see if they can rattle off a few wins and get in the mix. And the Falcons are in a pretty decent place. Like, I mean, not that it's excellent at 4-5, but they're definitely in a better place than we thought they would be. So not only is the new girlfriend not working out, but the exes are they're stirring a little bit.
Along those lines, just very quickly, because we have a lot more games to get to. The Frank Reich news kind of dominated things. Both Baker and Matt Ryan had their careers impacted by Deshaun Watson, right? Like, by their teams pursuing him, and obviously in Baker's acquiring him. And it just, like, in that sense, I feel badly for both of them, because that's a really crummy situation that they were connected to, or it was a crummy situation for them to be connected to that. And so they both, like, were so negatively impacted and are now part of this team, both part of teams that are terrible, both part of teams that have fired their head coaches. Like, just a lot of L's all the way around. It sucks. But no L for the Jacksonville Jaguars, 27-20. Josh McDaniel is, again, kind of, very grateful for the cover that the Frank Reich News has provided for today. The Jaguars picked up their third win of the season thanks to Trevor Lawrence's 235 yards and one mighty touchdown. Although Travis Etienne was kind of the story for the Jaguars, 28 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. He missed all of last year, but he looks like the real deal. They traded away James Robinson and looked very smart for doing so.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think you're finally starting to see the Jags get some steam here. I think the bigger story for me is on the other side, because as much as it was nice to see the Jags play a little bit better, I still don't necessarily believe that they're a playoff team. I think in the AFC West and how we look in Denver with Nathaniel Hackett and how much of a scapegoat he's been, and some of the embarrassing coaching moves, and the Russ thing has been a disaster. We're sort of overlooking, the McDaniel situation in Las Vegas. I mean, I know they're not in Las Vegas and Oakland, where those fan bases are. They're very aware, but I just think Hackett, we're just assuming, it's going to be a one and done because it's been such a disaster. This is the second 17-point lead that the Raiders have blown, and they went all in to go get Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, and you really felt with the new regime, this wasn't one of these things that you would have to build into being a contender. It was supposed to be automatic. And now you're halfway through the season, just about, and you're looking at a 2-6 record with 2 terrible losses. And so, if we're all saying, well, Hackett didn't come from, what was that background McDaniels did, but he's going to be definitely one and done because this has been such a disaster. Like, why are we not saying the same thing about Vegas? Because it's Josh McDaniels, like, you know what I mean? And it's almost worse in a way. And so, these are two teams that, again, in my opinion, are not going to be in the postseason this year. And it's like, what are the repercussions from that? I feel good about Doug Peterson, and because I think he's got that young quarterback, and this is still a program that they're starting to build. But Vegas was supposed to be, you're going to pick off where Rich Bisaccia left off, which was a 5th seed in the AFC, and they added Devontae Adams. So just a disaster right now in Vegas.
I don't know that that I feel good about the future of the Jaguars. I think I feel better about it than the Raiders, but that isn't like saying a lot. So, I mean, these are 2 bad teams. One of them had to win. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't think, I guess, like, I would rather be a Jaguars fan than a Raiders fan. This game started off on the Raiders side of things like, okay, they're going to throw the ball to Devontae Adams 1,000 times. But, hey, look at that. You threw it to him 1,000 times, 10 catches, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. You lost the game, but maybe you do that all the time. Like, that would be my big takeaway if I was a Raiders fan. 2 bad teams. Stay batting. You want to move on?
Sure.
Oh, man. I can't believe that I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet. Look, Pete, I know you were in on the Vikings. All right. Like, unlike our colleagues here at SB Nation, you are the only person who was with me in believing in the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
I believed in Kirk Cousins. All right. Nobody else did, especially Rob Stats Guerrero. And this was not a pretty win, but it was a win. It got them to 7-1. If this Vikings team, this is my question to you. If what is happening with the Vikings and what is happening with Kirk Cousins were any other team 7-1 and surviving, and if the quarterback went back to the place where he used to play and got a dramatic kind of last second win like that, it would be one of the biggest stories in the NFL. But because people want to confirm their priors so badly on Cousins, they're like, whatever, it's lame, he's a meme, he likes that, blah, blah, blah. This was awesome. It was so cool to see the plane ride and Kirk and all the jokes and fun. Like, the Vikings are such an awesome team.
Yeah, I saw the it was like that meme moment on the plane where he's got no shirt on, he's wearing all these chains, and when Ryan Fitzpatrick,
have you ever taken your shirt off on a plane?
Yeah, of course. When Ryan Fitzpatrick did it, it was the coolest thing going. I mean, we were all in. Everyone was like, "This guy's great." Kirk is for some reason he gets this thing where people just don't like him, not to like him. I think some of it was self-induced. Remember when it was the COVID situation? Look, you can make the choice of COVID, whatever you want to do. But he was like, to the point of, I'm just going to sleep in a glass box. I mean, come on, dude. Like, I think some of that goes back to that. And I think when he's in these post-game pressers, he's a little nerdy looking. On the field, he can be terribly inconsistent. You talk about the Andy Dalton line. I've always been like the new line is the Kirk Cousins line. If you have a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins,
that's so disrespectful. Like he's
pretty,
much better than what you're saying. Like
no, he's not.
Actually,
I mean,
I tweeted this yesterday.
I like the Vikings because of his surrounding cast more than Cousins.
Agreed.
I think he can win with
but that doesn't
Cousins.
mean he's not good. So here's my question to you. I tweeted this yesterday as the afternoon games were wrapping up. So when you were like, what was your pregame meal before the game last night?
They served burgers at the press box.
Were they good? See, that sounded like you were disappointed.
Well, the Arrowhead Stadium press box.
The GEHA stadium press box.
Yeah, the G. They have the burgers, and they're good. They're actually decent burgers, but they don't have the cheese melted on the burgers. You put the like dry. The burgers are kind of hot, and you put a sliced cheese on it.
Oh, gross!
It'd be a little bit better if they could somehow have like a cheeseburger spin and then the regular burgers. Where
the AT&T Stadium press box has the greatest mac and cheese you'll ever have in your life. There's pulled pork. There's it's what you think.
I don't need to visit AT&T to know that they might be doing a little bit better job.
So anyway, so I tweeted this out. Who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFC in order right now today?
Well, it's Jalen Hurts, right?
I mean, fine. And then is it Dak? I mean, no, like I know that like people be like, what a homer, but like who's 2? I think the five names.
I hate to say it, it might be Geno.
I think the 5 names include him. I think the names are Hurts, Dak, Geno, Cousins, and Brady.
You're gonna roll your eyes here. It's still Brady and Rodgers are still in that mix.
That's
and
stupid.
I know they're playing.
That's incredibly stupid.
I know they're playing horribly. I understand. But I don't think still, even with how bad the first half has gone for both of these guys, I don't think we can realistically say to each other, like, they're not going to play well at a certain point this year. You're starting to see a little bit with Brady. It was bad yesterday, but a little bit better. Rodgers was an absolute disaster. I'm the first to admit that. But like completely writing him off and saying that he's not among the top 5 in his conference, unwilling to do that. Unwilling to do it.
Anyway, the Commanders made this one close. On the subject, is Ron Rivera in trouble? You think at the end of I think Ron Rivera is making it through the season, but like at the end of it all, like I wonder, you know what I mean? He could be one of the Black Monday firings.
Right. But like, no, because this is a very weird situation right now.
Here's a question. Is he the Kirk Cousins of coaches? But like in the opposite, no, like in like the way you just described it, because you said, I like Kirk Cousins because of his surrounding cast. So like in the same spirit of that, like, are you willing to like allow more for Ron Rivera because of his surrounding cast and like what he's working with there and what they could get my question?
Yes. I know. I think he's a little bit higher than that. He's had a bad stretch here. That there's no.
You mean his entire career in Washington? Right.
There's no denying that. I don't think you could fire him because of the ownership situation. You're going to fire this guy and then sell the team. I think the next ownership will have a say in this thing. And
they did that in Denver.
I know, but I think Ron Rivera has a little bit higher of a pedigree, and I don't want to assume anything about Dan Snyder has been an absolute disaster, but I tend to think that the next ownership will get to make that call, and he might get one more year because of that.
All right, let's fly through here. The Detroit Lions survived against the Green Bay Packers.
How about Dan Campbell? The guy just wants to get home and have a beer.
I'm so sick of Dan.
He just wanted
sick of that stupid.
He was exhausted, and after such a big W, he wanted to get home and have a little brewski.
People think that Dan Campbell does not know what he's doing. He is so aware of the way he placates to the crowd and to the media. Like, and now to this point, there are people all over the world being like, "Man, what a badass! Like, he just wants to get home and have he's just like me. He wants to go home and have a beer. Like,
he's exhausted. He wants to put his feet up. Big 15-9 dub. I'm so sick. Just wants to pop the bubbly a little bit. You don't blame the guy.
Kudos to the Lions for winning. And I saw Jeremy Reisman, who does a great job of running Pride of Detroit around here. But so he was kind of refuting this claim, and I would refute it too if I was him. But like from our perspective, I don't know that Lions fans should feel like super pumped. Like this is hardly like, slaying the dragon that is the Packers and Aaron Rodgers.
The Packers are a disaster.
This team stinks, dude. And like, man, it is kind of refreshing to see so many people holding Aaron Rodgers accountable. And all this dude does is like dig himself deeper, like blame. He's the Frank Reich and Chris Ballard of quarterbacks right now, like just blaming people. Everybody sucks. Everybody stinks. I mean, it is it is a tough scene right now for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, 3-6 is a tough hole, and they're staring down the Cowboys, the Titans. The
That's
Eagles,
right, baby.
and
this one is for Mike this week, baby.
And then
I want to say this: the Packers fired Mike McCarthy after falling to 4-7-1 4 years ago. All right,
I don't think there's
the Cowboys can knock them to 3-7 at Lambeau Field. That would be so sweet.
The Packers, in this OBJ sweepstakes that we're about to enter here, where there's a lot of teams involved. I know the Cowboys will be involved as well, from what all the reports are saying. They need him the worst if they're going to have any chance this year. I mean,
why would you go there if you're Odell?
I know, but you had the Packers that were tied to Claypool. They offered a first rounder for DJ Moore reportedly. I mean, they desperately need a receiver. I'm just wondering if they give OBJ whatever he's looking for.
Isn't it funny that and Justice Mosqueda, who does a great job around here as well, has been all over this. Like Rodgers was like, people come here to play with me. Who's showing up to play with you, Aaron? Like who's the person that's dying to play with you in Green Bay?
Well, I think that narrative took a big hit when it was so clear that Devontae wanted to leave, because you thought
when he said he wanted out because he didn't know what Aaron's future was. Like he said,
yeah, and they seem to have a really strong rapport, and it's tough to break up the band and still think that you as a solo artist are going to have some success. I mean, you're seeing that with Aaron in Green Bay and Devontae in Vegas now. They need another weapon. They know it. They tried to do it. It didn't work out for them, and so now they have to win with these younger players, and it's just not working out. Lazard has really emerged, but he had to because there's really nobody else. I believe Doubs. Am I saying that correctly again? Doubs left with an injury, right? I think he's in question right now too. So it's a tough stretch right here in Green Bay, and there's going to be a lot of questions with this team in the offseason. And they gave Aaron Rodgers a lot of guaranteed money, and they got another 2 years of this thing. And we talk a lot about how Denver made a huge mistake with Russ Wilson. I don't disagree, but you're starting to approach that of like, which one is worse? I mean, it's hard to really pick a worse one at this point.
One story that isn't told, I don't know if this is what you're referencing, but what if they had gotten Aaron Rodgers? What the two quarterbacks who Denver wanted most are terrible. One of them is theirs, obviously, in Russell Wilson. But how much better would things have been with Aaron Rodgers?
At least you wouldn't have the dumbest motto in the league going right now, so you'd have that positive.
But would you rather be the cheesy meme the way they are with Russ, or the jerk that
the cheesy meme or the cheesehead meme? Is what you're saying. That's right.
The Seattle Seahawks outlasted the Arizona Cardinals. You mentioned Geno Smith, 31-21, the final score. Geno, 26-34, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw a pick, chipped in 6 carries for 38 yards. This Cardinals team, get ready to watch them on Hard Knocks, baby, starting this Wednesday on HBO. Can't wait to see this 3-6 team that sucks.
That is actually going to be really interesting, because every time you pan over the sideline at the Cardinals as they're losing these games, Kyler Murray is just screaming his head off.
He was fighting with Hop, which we will seemingly see on this week's episode.
He is he doesn't look like someone that you would like to play with. He doesn't look like a leader. He's got bad body language. It doesn't look like Cliff even enjoys him anymore. And this Cardinals team, if they keep on this track, they're not going to make the postseason. And I don't even, I don't want to give the Seahawks a lack of credit here, because I think the Seahawks are actually good. I cannot believe it, but I think they're actually good, and I think they have a really good chance to win this division, which is unbelievable to say. We never would have predicted that in a million years. But yeah, the Cardinals are a mess, and they've doubled down on the head coach and quarterback ahead of a messy season. So I don't know how that plays out in the offseason.
I don't know if you agree with me, and I'm really interested to see a primetime game in Seattle in the winter. You know what I mean? Because there's if you've watched football the last decade, there's something about those November, December, when it's already dark at kickoff, primetime games. You know what I'm saying? They're it's super intimidating. I don't know, why it is that way, but it's fun. They host the Niners on Thursday Night Football in Week 15 when the great stretch starts, like we talked about. And this kind of feels like the beginning of that era. I'm not saying the players are the same or the talent is the same. Obviously, that 2012 draft class was really fun, but the energy is akin to what it was. If you weren't a direct rival of the Seahawks in those early days when the run began, you kind of liked them. You know what I'm saying? I know, you know, and I'm fortunate the Cowboys had a big win against them, which, it's easy to like little brothers in that way. But they're just it kind of feels like they're back a little bit, which is something I don't think anybody saw coming. They're 6-3.
And Geno is a good quarterback, which is something we had. I'm not even trying to be punny here, but we all had written off Geno Smith. Like he's a career backup. He can be a backup in this league. There's no way he could start. I mean, even in this game, he has a pick six, and you hear about short memory all the time, right? He battles back. He finished with 26, 34, 275, 2 touchdowns, and the pick, and he got the 106.9 passer rating. That's what good quarterbacks do. Like they have that short memory. They get up, they dust themselves off, and for years I'm trying to remind people this. We laughed at Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll just wants to run the ball. Just wants to, run first offense. Why won't they let Russ cook? Let Russ cook. He's so good. He's an MVP candidate. Russ looks ridiculous now. And then they bring Ken Walker, and he's marvelous. He's running 26 over 109 and 2 touchdowns, and they're doing exactly what Pete wanted to do. And, like I always say this, like it's never too late to win the breakup. Like Pete Carroll looks great right now. He looks great.
Look, I mean, I'm not trying to lump them in the same like level of great, but Pete, like of the breakups, Pete Carroll looks kind of wise, right, for wanting to get rid of Russ. Like Russ was the problem. Tell me that the same isn't even kind of marginally true for Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. And I understand Aaron Rodgers has had successes over the last few years, but like it's very clear that it was not like utopia for Mike McCarthy to work in during his time in Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Again,
all right,
not the same thing, but like you get what I'm saying. There's a fraction of the energy you're talking about with Mike McCarthy. Like it's a good time to be the person who was both Pete Carroll and Mike McCarthy publicly took the L after their breakups.
Folks will disagree with me about this, but I think of the 4 individuals we're talking about, so it's Pete, Russ, Mike McCarthy, and Aaron Rodgers. Like Pete is the most likable by far. I mean,
I agree, but
there's a little bit of unlikability to McCarthy and Rodgers.
But the least likable is Aaron. Like Russ is a
sure.
Is
I agree with
corny
that
and stuff.
Yes.
But like at the very least, Russ is very like well intentioned. You know what I mean? Like there's some selfishness there, but like he is by all measures a good human being. Like Aaron would be the most difficult person to work with, and Aaron was the one who took the biggest victory lap over the person he broke up with. That's all I'm saying. But just to wrap things up with the Seahawks.
Wait, are you excited? Are you excited for this Packers Cowboys game for some reason? I'm sensing some excitement out of you.
This week's from Mike. Anyway, Seahawks 6-3. I just want win or loss. Next game in Germany against the Bucks.
I think the Bucks are back. I think the Bucks pull that one out.
Okay, I disagree. But then on their bye, then Raiders at home.
They'll win that one.
In LA against the Rams.
I like the Seahawks.
Okay, so that's 8. Panthers win. Niners on Thursday Night Football. That's at home for what it's worth, and they've owned them for a long time.
I don't know. I like to split these, and they lost the first one. All right, we'll give them the win because I think I like these teams to split in the AFC West
or the
NFC West.
You've got them at 10 wins at this point when they go to Kansas City.
I was talking about this with somebody last night. I think this is going to be a great game, Chiefs and Seahawks. I think the Chiefs.
I could see the Chiefs dropping that. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to pick games like that, but like it's definitely in that category. And then the Jets and Rams to finish it up.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to lose at home on Christmas Eve. Although I do like the Seahawks, so I'm going to give them a loss there. I have to. And then I like them over the Jets and the Rams. So
I think they're winning 10-11 games. Easy is the point. Okay. Last couple of games to slide through here very quickly. Bucks beat the Rams 16-13. I don't think the Bucks are back. This was a pathetic game. This was really boring and gross and stupid and dumb. I can't believe it was one of 2 afternoon games on.
That final sequence is something to build off of. I don't
or something to be like just devastated by for the Rams.
I mean both sides of it. I think that the Bucks need something like that, and like they need to take one of these moments that they have pulled out a win and then follow it up at the beginning of the next week's game. And I'm wondering if that can finally happen. What is it next week? It's you said it. It's the Seahawks. Like this is the perfect opportunity for you're on national TV. It's the morning. A lot of people will be watching this game. Get up early with the kids or whatever. If you have a kid like you are, Jay, I don't have a kid. I'll just get up and have some coffee. But I think the Bucks can build off that. Go to Germany. And then when you beat a 6-3 team, and the Seahawks are legitimately good, surprisingly, and then all of a sudden you're 5-5, you're coming back to the States. I think the Bucks can turn it around right here because you're entering the bye 5-5, and you're starting to feel a little bit better about everything.
I think it depends how you define turnaround. Like, can they win the division? Sure, totally. But like, can they be a legitimate like? I think the NFC right now, the 3 best teams in the NFC.
Get in the dance and pull up your pants. We've seen wild cards go the whole way.
Sure. But today, the 4 best teams in the NFC are the Eagles, Vikings, Seahawks, and Cowboys. The 5th is probably San Francisco. So I just, whatever. The Rams, dude, the Rams are awful. Like there is nothing like I feel more confident than ever that their title last year was this like weird fluke of events that worked out in their favor. Like it felt lame and like a script, like very Hollywoody, obviously.
We're on a streak now, not only of the team playing their Super Bowl and winning it in their building, but now you've had two players that should have left on top that didn't, and now will never get that opportunity again.
And Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, just so we're clear.
Aaron Donald, but yes.
Oh, wow. Curveball. Look at you, Pete Sweeney. Final game, Sunday Night Football.
Like those world champion Astros, baby. Woo.
There we go, Pete. That's my man. Put Pete in the bullpen.
That's right.
What would be your song to walk out of the bullpen to? Like you're walking
I was
to
a
the
big
mound.
Mariano Rivera fan growing up, but I wouldn't use Enter Sandman. Maybe Wake Up, shut up, make up, wake up. You wanted to. I don't even know who sings that, but that feels right.
Chiefs win overtime 20-17.
Maybe Jason Derulo.
Oh yeah. What you say?
Yeah. There we go.
You got to do the like obligatory though, like Jason Derulo.
No, that's up to him to do it. Yeah.
This was a really inspired effort from the Titans. I mean, they had won 5 games in a row. And you can argue should have won this game. Obviously, they didn't. Really kind of crazy sequence at the end. It did kind of feel like
what happened at the end, RJ. You can say it. It's okay. What happened at the end?
Look, hey Pete, I have been Team Chiefs. There's no need to. There's no need to attack me.
I want to hear you say what you need to say here.
I know.
What
happened?
I
just want to. I have been Team Chiefs this season. All right, like let's be very clear. I am an honorary Kingdom member. All right, and what happened at the very end was Patrick Mahomes refused to lose. Now, what I will say, I don't like. I'm not saying it's not fair, but I don't. Right. Or that there was some like in whatever happening. But like the back-to-back penalties and the 2-point conversion, just like that's a lame way for it to end. Like when something cool is happening.
So this was in my rapid reaction last night. I usually have the 3 points and I do a final word. That's kind of how I've made it.
3-point final one. Arrowheadpride.com. Pete Sweeney.
Arrowheadpride.com. That's how I do it at the after these games. Well, my third point was like flags aren't fun, and it was not a point of like complaining about the Titans getting calls or the Chiefs getting calls. I tried to take that out of it and said like you have this game. And it's interesting in a weird way. I mean, you'd rather it be Tannehill and Mahomes, right? In the rematch of the AFC title from a few years ago. But you have a kid that's interesting in Malik Willis. And here he is in a spot start at Arrowhead, Sunday Night Football, going up against the mighty Chiefs. The Titans could really use this as a season-defining game. The Chiefs have a golden opportunity because the Buffalo Bills dropped one they shouldn't have earlier in the day. And suddenly it's interesting. And what do you have? You have 18 flags for over 100 yards. And I'm sitting there and I'm like in the press box yesterday, I'm like, this game, taking any kind of bias at all out of it. This is such a dull, boring game. And every play was a flag. And I completely agree with you. And I'm not trying to say that you're wrong. I don't think there should have been so many flags on the two-point conversion. I just don't think there should have been many flags, period.
It's a whimper, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was such an epic, like, sequence, and then it's just, like, it just deflates it for you as a fan watching.
The whole game was like that, deflated by these flags, and it was the entire game. It was terrible. It was honestly terrible.
I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the broadcast yet. Obviously, 3 hours of sleep, like we talked about, but Chris Collinsworth is literally hyping up, and appropriately, the connection between Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce as the ball tips off of Kelce's hands. Like it was just like a really like funny point of irony that like he was literally like, man, these dudes are they know each other, and then like bloop, it was really funny. Quick points from me. I watched the whole game very closely, obviously. I was literally reading a tweet like maybe 6 minutes after the game ended that said Malik Willis only completed 5 passes. And I was like, that's impossible. Like, I was like, there's no way that is actually what happened. And then obviously I double checked and I could not believe that even though I watched it.
This is a problem that the Titans have right now. They need to get Tannehill back. And here's why, because it could be a quarterback of the future type of deal. But this is someone that they need to build their entire program and offense around. And it's nothing like Ryan Tannehill, and what Ryan Tannehill does. I mean, there needs to be designed plays for Willis to use his athleticism. And it's just, they're trying to make it work on the fly. And it almost did work last night. I had 700 words written, in that same article I was talking about, in a loss. I had to scrap everything. I mean, that's part of the gig. That's what we do. But
between copywriter, let's go.
Yeah, I scrapped everything because Patrick Mahomes stole the show once again. I mean, this is not something that we should be completely surprised about. But the Titans were in a position to win, and if I'm if I'm looking at the Titans from someone outside looking in, because I don't study the Titans every single week, their defense is legitimate. And so if they can get Tannehill back, I think they're going to be a very tough out in the AFC playoffs.
I have a couple of very quick points. I don't think we give Mike Vrabel enough credit. Like I know that's like a really popular thing to say, but man, like he is such a good coach. Like I don't know that any coach gets more out of less, or get like I actually the best way to say this, I don't know that any coach like bleeds the like piece of fruit dry. Like Mike Vrabel gets all the meat off the bone, like every single piece. It is so fun to watch.
And he's Belichickian, and so he knows the rules of the game and exploits everything to the 10th degree. The difference is that Belichick is a smaller statured, older guy, and he just looks like almost like a nerdy mastermind. Where it's like burly, he looks like I'm in the gym, but he's very smart, and you see it in the game planning and how they try to attack teams and win. And he almost beat Andy Reid and Mahomes. Had it not been Mahomes being miraculous and the flags, like you were saying, who knows how this goes. And having Tannehill, I'd like to see these two teams play with a healthy Ryan Tannehill, is what I'm saying. And it's been impressive without AJ Brown, because they really don't have anyone through here.
Dude. And AJ was, I don't know if you saw us tweeting during the game and like making fun of the Titans. And it's like, why can't you let this go? Like, I think that's really strange that AJ has this like vendetta against the Titans. Like you got out, you got what you wanted. You're not an undefeated team. You got paid. Like, why are you still harboring these ill feelings?
Ty Hill does the same thing, and he's in a great team right now, and they're very interesting, and he does the same thing to the Chiefs. I don't know why.
Very strange. But my absolute last point, you mentioned that the Packers maybe need Odell Beckham the worst. Of the teams who have been connected, I know that obviously every Chiefs fan is going to be like, give us Odell. But if we're ranking them, I think the Chiefs need him the least. Juju has really come along, and that's been really interesting to watch. I do think the unsung hero on the Chiefs offense is Mecole Hardman. Like it feels like he's going to have a pop. Like he's going to have a moment at some point, somebody that's going to break things. Like he may not be as consistent as other players, but he's going to have a pop. I really, really like Mecole Hardman.
They're spreading the ball around, and they have a lot of different options. And now that you've added Tony, I especially don't think that you need OBJ, because Tony is a very, very interesting player. He's very athletic, uber athletic. I talked to Ed with Big Blue, and Ed's a believer in him. He just needed to kind of get his head straight off the field and get healthy. And both seem to already be happening 1 week in here. I'm eager to see how Tony grows. And I think now that you've added him, do you really need to add what would be an 8th receiver? Because Justin Watson is pretty good too. So they almost have too many receivers right now as it is that can contribute to the offense. And the Chiefs, they look a little different because they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. They're not taking the top off the defense, but they're winning by using a lot of different receivers, and you don't really know where they're going to go with the football. So they need to fix the run game. That's a huge problem. You're not going to be able to win in the playoffs consistently unless you get this run game fixed. But aside from that, they're okay. They're 6-2, and now it's really interesting. If Buffalo drops another one, then the Chiefs can keep winning. They can have a better outright record and sneak into that bye. So we'll see how it goes in the second half here.
All right, it's time. Rachel, please join us. Number one, we are sorry we went over on time. Blame the Colts. But so number one, Rachel, your thoughts on the Colts firing Frank Reich. Number two, one big takeaway from Sunday's NFL action. And number three, of course, MF double MVP.
I'll start with my biggest takeaway. I don't think either of you guys have mentioned this, but I said stock up performance for the Lions rookie safety, Joseph.
Sure.
I thought that was, not the fact that he had not one, but 2 interceptions, and he batted a ball down. So I was like, that's good for him to be shining right now, and definitely a player to watch. Not too much to say on like the Frank Reich firing. I think that both of you guys touched on it and hit on some really good points. Ben Solak tweeted out, all of the different firings that have happened up until this point. RJ, you always talk about this team being a fraud team. So it's kind of like at this point, it
is what it is. It's uncomfortable. Right?
I like the point that you mentioned about Irsay, like being embarrassed at this point. Clearly, like he said, enough is enough. So it's not really like surprising to see. So hopefully like this will be like a shift for this organization. And then based off of some of the points today, one of my favorite points was RJ, you talked about how Zach Wilson was getting like crowned a little bit too much, and it really wasn't even down to him. Like the defense played a role.
Let's crown Sauce Gardner, right? Totally with you.
Yeah, so I like that point a lot.
That was my point. Was that my point?
Pete, Rachel is speaking. Please let her speak.
RJ said it first, and then you commented on it, and you said
okay.
So that one was, yeah. And then also, RJ, I like how you mentioned, well, this is more so like disagreeing with Pete. Pete, you say you think the Bucks are back. I don't agree. So RJ said he didn't think they're back.
Yeah, just bet against. Yeah, you guys can bet against the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm going to be on the other side of that, though. That's all right.
I mean, Tom Brady's always going to be the GOAT. I just don't know if I agree with them being back.
I don't think
very well said, Rachel.
He's single. He's single Tom right now. Headed to Germany. You know, who knows what happens when you're on vacation?
Yeah, I guess. Today's winner is Ochoa for sure.
Let's go. That's
terrible
3
pick.
In a row.
Picking Roel over me
all the way
is
around.
Always incorrect, as you know. But look, I appreciate your decision. Even though it's the wrong one.
I want to thank Rachel, first and foremost, for being so wonderful in every single way. I want to thank the Houston Astros for inspiring me by defeating the, I wouldn't say frauds, but the little brothers that are the Philadelphia Phillies. I just want to let all of the Philadelphia fans know that I have a title against you. It's not just a regular season win. I have a title, a world championship that I slayed the mighty city of Philadelphia to get. So shout out to me. I also want to thank Michael Peterson. Came in, inspired me with his stunning good looks. Michael is wonderful. I hope the tacos work out for him. And I want to thank you, Pete, for being the Phillies of this show, the losers in the title round. So
I don't feel like the Phillies. I feel like a team that's going to come back stronger next year and knock off the Stros. We're getting ready right now to do it. So,
wow. Okay, then Rachel, please send us home with number 1, your favorite kind of taco, like that you would recommend that Michael get, and 2, pick a food that Pete has to make the sound of that is not tacos.
Taco, I would say you can never go wrong with a breakfast taco.
Good call.
So I'm gonna go with breakfast, like the
carne asada is also pretty good.
With the scrambled eggs. That's like that's a good choice.
Okay.
Yes.
A little egg and bacon. Yeah.
A sound of a food that you should make. I'm gonna go with shrimp.